Welcome to Proof It's Possible. Jamie and I are multifaceted entrepreneurs, the founders of the Ultimate Girls Trip, and the hosts of Proof It's Possible. Jamie and I are also sisters, best friends, and complete opposites, but somehow we always manage to stay on the same team. Join us every week to hear our thoughts on all things entrepreneurship, friendship, family, pop culture, and more. Hi, welcome back to Proof It's Possible. Today we are chatting about a topic that's been on our morning coffee chats for a while, and it's, are you a winner or a loser? And what does that mean? What sets people apart from being the person who does the big thing, has a successful business, has a successful life, marriage, parenting, whatever? So, Jamie, you kind of had the idea and were the one that brought it up to me in our chat. So what are your thoughts on this?
Well, Alex Hormozy talks a lot about winners and losers, and he says there's no such thing as losers. There's just quitters. So if you just stick with anything long enough, you'll become a winner too. But I saw this little clip. I think it was a TikTok or something, where he talks about how it started for him, identifying the difference between a winning mindset and a losing mindset. And He said in grade school, when they started being there are no winners and losers at the track meet or, for the science fair or whatever, everyone's getting a participation medal and a pat on the back. He was yeah, that was the demise of essentially the winning and losing spirit. And he said that you can identify a loser a mile away by the way that they talk. They'll say things oh, must be nice for her, must be nice for him, wish I had that kind of money. I would start the business, but I can't afford it.
Yeah.
All the reasons. So he's saying a loser's mindset is that you're constantly in victimhood. You never take charge and say no, I'm the reason I am where I am. And if I'm not where I want to be, it's because I haven't worked hard enough for it, or I haven't fought enough for it, or I haven't sacrificed or worked at it long enough, or whatever the case is. So I just think that winning and losing mindset is such a interesting and polarizing topic, because a lot of people are going to get triggered by hearing the word loser. But I see it more as you're either in victimhood or you're in control, or you're in the driver's seat of your own life. And I can spot someone who's in victimhood a mile away. Someone who's oh, well, because of X, Y, and Z, I can't do this, and I can't do that. And, the world's out to get me, and all the reasons why it's so hard for them, even though people in their exact same situation, same circumstances have made a go of it. And so I just think it's really interesting. And how do you flip from victimhood to empowerment? How do you decide ooh, some of the things I say are pretty victim-y. Yeah. How do I get into a different state of mind?
Yeah. Well, I will just say, this is speaking of being triggered, I'm not triggered, but I've been a loser and I've been a winner. So the time, one of the biggest times for me that I felt I was a loser is when I was first in a wheelchair. I had this idea that my weight was no longer within my control. Because I couldn't exercise, that was off the table for me, the way that other people exercised. I was now just going to have to accept that being heavier would be part of my life. But the problem with becoming heavier while you're in a wheelchair is that it makes your life in a wheelchair extremely hard. It makes it extremely hard for other people to help you. So it quickly became such a discomfort for me to stay in that. And my mobility had already been affected before I was an actual full-time wheelchair user. So I was already not that active. And so I was already struggling with my weight because I was a teenager and not eating properly and all the things. And you know what got me out of it? If I have to go back and think back to what it was, radical acceptance that it was me and only me that could make the change. And it was my decision to make consistent effort towards being healthier. And it wasn't about just what?
When you're in victimhood, the very last thing you want to hear is that you have the power. You have
Yeah.
the
And
power to make the change. And only you, like, because you're still waiting for that person to ride up on their white
Mhm.
horse, your knight in shining armor, like whatever that
Yeah.
looks like. It doesn't have to be a man and it doesn't have to be a knight in shining
No,
armor. But
exactly.
whatever that like unicorn you've placed all of
Yeah.
your hopes and dreams on, you're waiting for
I
that
was
person or
thinking
that
right
thing
now.
or that
Yeah.
circumstance to swoop in and pick you up and just make you, in your case, like, fit and healthy. Well, and you're
Well,
not going
and
to
the thing, exactly. And the thing is that having to face the fact that I could sit around and be like, well, it's genetics that have caused me to be heavier set. Like there's lots of people in my family that struggle with their weight. Or I could say it's that I can't exercise. It's that it's my mobility challenges and that it's just not fair for me. And like that all might be true. Okay. Yeah, but what happens if I just
have.
took accountability for the things I do have control over? For me, the one big thing I had control over was my food. If I really looked at my food, I was the damn problem. I was eating like a teenager. I wasn't eating like an adult that knew what calories were, knew what carbohydrates were, knew what the right balance for my body was. I wasn't eating the right portions. I wasn't, so there was all kinds of tools within my toolkit that I was just like, it was easier to blame the other things and make it somebody else or something else's problem than taking radical responsibility for my own decisions and my inconsistencies. Because I could still do some exercise. I can still do some exercise, although it's very small. I hit my little bike every time I can, and I get in a swimming pool every time I can. It's not the exercise that someone else might do, but it's still moving my body and it's better than nothing. So that was the part that it's like, it's very hard to look in the mirror though and actually make that change and start being like, and there's areas in my life that I still have to do that, where I'm like, where I want to like level up. I need more consistency. I need to sit down and do the damn thing and stop complaining about it, stop worrying about it, stop thinking there's somebody out there that could do it better than me and could help me with it. And I should,
Mhm.
find that person
Mhm.
and keep stalling. They're all just stalling tactics. Like all
Mhm.
of it is just stalling tactics. So, do you have a time in your life where you were the loser
Oh,
or loser?
hundreds of thousands of times. Like, I mean, I basically wrote a whole book about being the victim. Like, I'm the victim of
Right.
all of this bad stuff, and it's so sad for me, and my life is hard. And I was like, yeah, but you can make it easier. Like, I could have, I could have left my marriage long before it got that bad. I could have decided that I didn't want to live like that anymore. I could have done a lot of things, but it's easier to be like, oh, it's so hard for me. It's so hard for me to live this life. And everybody, like, pat me on the back for what a wonderful person I am, for like being a good mom and staying and all of those things. And it's like,
Trudging
that's
through it.
bullshit. All of it's
Yeah.
bullshit. Like,
Mhm.
no one else is responsible for my happiness. Not a single soul on this planet except for me. And even in business, though, like when businesses fail, I hate seeing it. Like, don't get me wrong, I absolutely hate seeing it. But I think there's a lot of people that their business could have been saved a lot sooner or, prevented from going bankrupt if they would have made different decisions. Like, if I look at like governments all the time, if the government continues to spend, like our economy is in this like thriving position, eventually you're going to run out of money to spend. And
Oh,
that's the same as like any other a business or your own personal account. Let's just take it right back to us. If I am spending money that I don't have, if I'm spending on my credit card, eventually the credit card bill comes in the mail and you
mhm.
either have to pay it or you max out your credit card. But at some point, you have to be like, "Ooh, I overspent. That was me." Like, it's
Yep,
not the
exactly.
world's fault. It's not the advertising's fault. It's not the store's fault. It's not going to the
The
mall's fault.
restaurant
It's not
floor. Yeah,
the
exactly.
convenience of it all. It's not Amazon's fault. It's the fact that I made the choice to overspend. And that's why
Yeah.
my credit card is either maxed out or I can't pay my
Or
bills, like, and I think businesses do the same. Like, Lynx Air just announced that they
right.
are, they've gone into receivership or creditor protection. And it's like, okay, but why didn't they have like millions, hundreds of millions in debt. Why didn't they say like, hey, we don't have enough to fill these planes. Let's make smaller. Let's get rid of some routes. Let's get rid of some planes. We can't afford the leases on these. Like, I think there's decisions we all have to make in business life, personal life, where you have to be responsible to make the changes necessary. You don't just get to be like, oh, now I've gone broken. It's everybody else's fault. It's the economy's fault. It's my ex-husband's fault. It's my kid's
Yeah,
fault. It's
whatever. There's always somebody out there that you can point the gun at to be like, it's you. Point the finger and
totally.
be like, you did this. Well, and like this story I'm about to tell like triggered me in such a big way. I had somebody say to me, it's easier for you to do the things you do. And I was like, okay, that's a strange. And I was kind of like, no, it's equally as hard or easy. We all have circumstances. And I just couldn't understand where that person was coming from, because they also followed it up with saying something to the effect of, they said it was easier for you and everything just comes to you easily, basically, was like the whole point in their little speech to me. And I thought, after I like reframed it, and this to me was like a winner's mindset, in that I reframed it after like being triggered, feeling annoyed, being like, no, I actually worked for it. It isn't luck. I didn't just stumble into it. I literally put my brain on into a place where I was like, even bad things are here to serve me. So how do I take the good out of the bad?
Mm-hmm.
How do I
How do I
find the
get the lesson in
lining?
all of it? Yep.
Exactly. So I literally turned like that triggering moment and I thought, you know what? I'm actually really proud of myself for the fact that on the outside, it does look like everything's just falling into my lap. And that's fine, because there is a whole bunch of work that goes into whatever good things come to all of us. Whether you're having teeny tiny little wins in your business, in your life, in your marriage, in your health journey, whatever it looks like, that took a lot of energy. And if
Mm-hmm.
somebody can't see that, that's on them. That's not, they're still stuck in some sort of loser's mindset.
Well, and
And
if
that's
that isn't the epitome of like a loser's mindset, being like it's
yeah,
easy for you, like they know nothing about your circumstances or the trials and tribulations of your life or your business or whatever they were talking about, but they've already decided that it was easy for you and it's hard for them, and that's why they haven't done what you've done. Simple.
exactly. And I thought, you know what? It is easy for me and good things come to me every day. And that is where my default is every time I try something new, I think this is going to be great. I hope this works out in the best way possible. I hope this exceeds my expectations, my imagination. I hope that I'm wildly successful at this, and I know that that's possible with every endeavor I take on. And if I had the internal dialogue that was basically like, you're a loser, nothing works out for you, everything goes bad. Do you know how much money it costs to start a business? Do you know how much money you're spending every month? It's really bad. Everything's bad. Guess what? It will be bad. It's a promise it'll be
Mm-hmm.
bad. You're guaranteeing, you're pre setting up. It's all bad things for you coming forward.
Mm-hmm. I
So,
also think it's so interesting because somebody came over last night to give us a quote, and he was telling me about somebody he was driving with, and the person is a very successful psychologist. And she said, someone in a very fancy car cut them off. And he was like, oh, what a dick move or whatever. And she was like, I hate rich people. And he was like, what?
mm,
Why? Why would you
why?
say that? Like, and
Broad stroke hate.
yeah, just brought I hate rich people. And he was like, what do you mean you hate rich people? And she's like, I would never want to be a rich person. He's like, you
Oh,
don't? Like, why? And
yeah.
her answer was that she just wants to be comfortable. And he was like, you're a doctor in Canada, in one of the safest countries in the world. You own a home. You're driving a nice vehicle. You're going out for dinner, like as we speak. What other comforts do you want? Like, if it's
Yeah,
just
exactly.
comfort that you're
Well,
seeking, if all you're
the funny
seeking is comfort,
yeah. Well,
can't
and the
you just
interesting
acknowledge that you are comfortable right now? And she was like, well, yeah, I'm comfortable, but like, and he's like, okay, so why do you have to hate rich people? Or why do you have to hate successful people? Why do you have to hate people
do you
that are
want to know
like
what my thought
different than
is
you?
though? Somebody else would look at her and say, you are rich. She is a rich person potentially. Like everybody's metric of what that means is something different. So someone else could look at her and say, like, she makes 5 times what I make. Her car is worth 10 times what my car is worth. That is a rich person. And do you remember the story that you told
Yes,
on a
about the
few
cab driver.
cab driver? Like, he's like, all you need to be a rich person is to have people who love you and a roof over your head and a safe country to live in. That is it. That is it. That is a rich life. That's not even a comfortable life. That's a wonderful, rich life.
Mhm.
So, and like, I mean, I love the idea of prosperity and, um, like making money and having life experience as a result of that money and living a 10 out of 10 life. Like, that's what I want. So I'm happily will say I would love to make more money. That is something I like stand behind, stand on, own,
Well, in like universe,
control.
it wasn't me that said I hate rich people. I'm just repeating a story. I just want to make that clear.
Yeah,
I
don't
love
listen to
rich
this
people.
conversation.
Universe,
I
love rich people.
I really am looking to be richer, please.
Please.
But anyway, yeah. So it's one of those things that it's like it's all in the eye of the beholder too.
For
So
sure, but it's proof that like victimhood isn't isn't
finds
just for
its way.
like the down and outers. It's for the everyday folk. Like there's people
Oh yeah,
that have this victimhood mentality. Even though
yeah.
they've got some success in their life, they still have elements. Like for instance, I would say that this person we're talking about has a very negative loser money mindset. Like that they've just decided that money is a bad thing and that I'm like, it's
Yeah.
crazy
And
that
they're putting, okay, so I have one more question for you about this. As a mom of three, what are your thoughts on kids and the whole idea that, like, you shouldn't get participation medals? Somebody should win, somebody should lose. Do you agree with that? Do you agree that it's like, because it's a tough one, because it's like, it's nice to see kids, uh, you know, getting celebrated and letting
Mhm.
them feel like
I think
they're
it's
all,
age dependent. Like I know that the 6 year olds that my son plays hockey with, the
yeah,
coaches make sure that every 6 year old gets the wrestling belt, the hardest worker belt by the end
right?
of the season. And I think that at 6, that's what all your brain can comprehend is that like I worked hard today. They don't see it as like a pity award. They see it as like, yeah, I've been
No.
hustling all year. It's about time I got to take home the trophy, you know?
Yeah.
And but I do think that as we get older and as they approach like adulthood, we have to get more real with them. Like the real world doesn't give out participation awards. The real world has winners and losers. Like there
For
isn't a
sure.
like, oh my God, you started the business. It's not successful, but we're all just going to
We're
keep
all just
cheering for
clapping, and
you.
here's like your medal, and
Yeah, and we're just going to keep like giving, you just enough money to survive so that you can feel
mhm.
good about it. Like, cause that's the equivalent of like a participation medal. Like, no, that's not how real life works. Real life works. Your business is either good and viable and thriving, or it has
Yes.
to close its doors. There's winners, there's losers, there's winners, there's losers. There's no in betweeners. And so I think that everything is age appropriate. Like everything has to be appropriate. But I do think that there's lessons in all of it. Like I know that my almost 11-year-old, when they named captains a couple years ago on her team, she was like devastated because she's like, I thought I was a good friend and a good leader and a good all the things that a captain should be, but they let the kids vote on it. So they let the kids decide, cast a vote on who they thought the captain should be. So it didn't come down to leadership and it didn't come down to like, your skill
No.
level. It came down to like who had the popularity contest, who had the most votes. And I remember she was just like crushed by the whole experience. And I was crushed because she was crushed. It was the saddest day ever. She cried the whole drive home. And it was just like a very, very sad thing. But I thought to myself, like, there's a lesson in this for her. And that's that if you do want to be, well, that's an unconventional and stupid way to pick a captain. So I'll just say that it should be based on skill and leadership. There's winners and
Okay,
there's losers, okay?
mom.
Anyway, but it was like a message to her that she's like, okay, I have to be more like vocal in the dressing room. I
Yeah.
have to be a better friend. I have to be a better leader. I have to work on my skating and my stick handling and all of the things. It to her, it wasn't like oh no, this is the end of the line for me. I better just quit the sport. She
Yeah.
was like, no, this is my cue to like dig a little
Level
deeper.
up. Yeah,
Yeah.
level up. Well, no, and I remember that whole situation, and I actually think that it's not a terrible way to do it because in a way, um, for her, she thought just being good at ringette mattered to be the
Hmm.
captain. You know what I mean? Like she had it
Yeah.
dialed in that these were the rules of this game, and this game was to be the captain. What you needed to do was improve at ringette and be a good player. And the fact is she needed to actually be a good human being in the dressing room, on the ice, be a good cheerleader to others, be likable, which is real life stuff. Like you can go to
Hmm.
work and be the best worker in the entire company, but if you have a personality like a toothache, it goes
Or
unnoticed. Your work
you sit in your office. You sit in your office with the door closed and don't speak to anybody. You eat lunch alone and you do all the things.
exactly.
No one's going to really remember you.
For sure. And when they think of the next promotion or the next thing, they're like, oh, it's this guy that I eat lunch with every day. He does all this great stuff because he tells me he did all that great stuff, or he was,
Hmm.
he did a great presentation or whatever. Because they were in front of people, they were making relationships while they were doing the good work. And so I think, and like she's even figured out the game or like the her like game plan in that she knew she wouldn't be the captain the next year because she was the youngest, she was one of the younger girls in the next like level that she moved up to.
Yeah.
But she knows that next year she very likely could be because she'll be the older group within that age group. So I love that she's like, okay, if I want this, these are the ways that I can get it. And like she might not win. And that's the other thing. She might not get it the next time because the next coach might have a different parameter on how it
Well, and
gets.
you want to know what? Isn't that life? You can still bust your
Right.
ass and do all of the right things, and you're still not the chosen one, or you're still not successful. Whatever success looks like for you, but
Totally.
there's a lesson in not being the one too.
Exactly.
There's a lesson
And
in
there's
all of
the rules of life changing because when you work at one company, the place operates in one way. When you work at another company, it could entirely change. And so the way that you behaved at one doesn't always like translate. The things that made you successful somewhere, I think there's a book that's called What Got You Here Won't Get You There.
it. Hmm.
And it's basically like you can't just master one thing and let it ride you for the rest of your life. You always need to adapt. And that's also, in my opinion, like a winner's quality. Like learning to
It's
understand
all about
when
the
new,
pivot.
yep, the power of the pivot and
Hmm.
being willing to learn along the way and pick up new
Hmm.
skills that work for you to get you the things that you need in your life.
Yes, and it's getting rid of that like old school mentality, like, well, this is how I've always done it, or I know best because I've been doing this for 20 years. That
Totally.
like if I see a red flag a mile away, it's someone who says things like,
Totally.
I've done it this way for 20 years. Well, guess what? Computers didn't exist 20 years ago. Like a lot
Well, that's
changes in
it.
20 years.
Exactly. Like, would you hire the bookkeeper that's like, yeah, I don't use a computer because for 40 years I've been using this piece of paper and
Ledger.
pencil and my eraser,
Yeah,
and if I make a mistake, like, I wouldn't hire that person because I need somebody that's moving with the times, who's doing it the way we do it now.
absolutely. And the world
Yeah,
is constantly changing.
constantly changing. And we don't have control of that. So get on the, you know, get on
Yeah,
the change wagon because it's happening. Even though
absolutely.
it's so frustrating, but so
I
oh, go ahead.
I think that there are definitely clear winners and losers. I think there are definitely lessons in being the winner and being the loser. And I
Yeah.
once heard this thing I think it was in like a yoga class, so I don't know who actually said it, but essentially it's like, when things are bad, it won't last. When things are good, it won't
Hmm.
last. So stay humble, stay kind,
Exactly.
keep pivoting, keep changing, keep doing whatever
Yeah.
you need to do. Learn the lessons along the way, and
Well, and know that sometimes you will be a loser. Even if you've been a winner, you can go back to the loser circle quick because it's easy. It's easy to like jump into something new and be like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not qualified for this. This is too hard for me, and getting your mindset back into the place it needs to be, getting back
mhm.
to a winner's
I
mindset.
also heard, and I don't know who said it, but it was just like a little snippet on my socials this morning, and it was a clip where a guy was saying like, "Why don't we just come to terms with the fact that like it's too hard, rather than saying like, oh, I can't, say it's too hard and I don't want to. And I'm like,
Yeah,
oh man, that's the
exactly.
truth. Like, guys, I really want a six pack, but it is hard. And I don't want to. I don't feel like
I don't want to do that. Exactly. That's what I mean.
like it's possible for me, but is it probably going to happen? No, because I've decided it's too hard.
Exactly. And like it could be if you chose to pursue it, you could have it. But choosing not to pursue it, and that is your loser mindset of the day. Like
Absolutely.
So to wrap it up, you're a loser.
To wrap it up, we are all losers and we just have to accept it. Just kidding. We're all winners. We are all losers. It's just where are we willing to win and where are we willing to lose? And
where are you on your journey?
Yeah. What's that?
I said, where are you on the journey of being a winner or a loser?
Yeah, like, for sure.
Thanks for joining us. We'd love to hear from you about whether you feel like you're a winner or a loser naturally and the things that you've had to do to get yourself into that winner mindset. See you next time.
Bye, guys.
We are so grateful you're here.
It would mean the world to us if you'll subscribe to our podcast and YouTube channel and leave us a review.
If you want to hear more from us, go to proofitspossible.com to join our mailing list and find our social links so you don't miss a thing.
Thanks and chat next time.